let's get to our conversation with Wamkele Mene, who of course is the Secretary, His Excellency, the Secretary General of the Africa Continental Free Trade Area. We spoke about the international Intra-Africa Trade Fair that's going to be taking place in Algeria next year. Talked also about Intra-Africa trade and a whole lot more. Here's our conversation.
It's very significant that we take the Intra-Africa Trade Fair to a North African country for the second time, or rather the third time. The first one, the inaugural one, was in 2018, in December 2018 in Cairo. And then late last year, in November, we went back to Egypt. Unfortunately, Côte d'Ivoire could not host it, so we had to go back to Egypt. And then there was a bidding process. We made an assessment of the bids that we received, and Algeria met all of the criteria and made a commitment that they will provide the facilities ready for 2025. It's important in the sense that we stress the Africanness of the trade fair, in the sense that it has to rotate across the continent, both in terms of language, and in this case, a French-speaking country will host it, as well as Arab-speaking country. So it's an important milestone.
And the website has a projection of about $43 billion possibly in deals and so on being signed. Is that due to opening up trade, I guess, to that North African market?
The AFCFTA, the theme of the trade fair is that Intra-Africa Trade Fair, the marketplace for the AFCFTA. It is important in the sense that when the AFCFTA was launched, we were on the second edition of the Intra-Africa Trade Fair, and we saw companies taking advantage of the AFCFTA, the rules that enable movement of goods, reduction of barriers, taking advantage of those rules, and in fact trading volumes, large volumes, in the platform of the Intra-Africa Trade Fair. So, for example, in Durban, the transactions were $42 billion. Cairo exceeded that a little bit. So we want, the more the acceleration of the AFCFTA continues and the intensification of implementation, we expect that there will be a commensurate rise in the volumes of trade within the AFCFTA marketplace, which is the Intra-Africa Trade Fair. So we expect that we will exceed the numbers from the last trade fair.
All right. Now, this is, of course, a collaboration between the AFCFTA Secretariat, the African Union, the Afrexim. Can you talk about what each brings to the table with this collaboration?
Afrexim Bank are the pioneers of the trade fair. The very first one was in 2018, before the existence of the AFCFTA Secretariat. So credit to Afrexim Bank for having had the vision and also providing the resources to make sure that the trade fair happens. The AFCFTA Secretariat brings a market of 1.4 billion people, SMEs, youth, and also the rules that enable the transactions to happen. If there was no AFCFTA, the trade fair would, in my view, wouldn't see its full value, because you would still have the barriers to trade, the rules that prohibit movement of goods and services. So with the existence of the AFCFTA, the commercial value of the Intra-Africa Trade Fair has increased. So that's what we bring to the table. African Union is a strong partner. The African Union Commission also was there from the very beginning. So it's a very strong partnership. And as you know, the Advisory Council is chaired by President Obasanjo. So under his wise leadership, we have been making steady progress over the years.
I want to ask you about technology. We understand that the IATF virtual will be utilized to where businesses can showcase their goods and so on online, even after the trade fair is over. Can you speak to the benefits of what technology brings to trade?
That actually was introduced in Durban 2021 when we hosted the Intra-Africa Trade Fair in November because of COVID-19. There were travel restrictions, there were restrictions in terms of numbers of people in the building. So we had to come up with innovations about how do we continue to have a trade fair where people can participate, but they are not physically there. So we want to continue with that, creating that virtual marketplace that is linked to the physical marketplace, the Intra-Africa Trade Fair. I think it's a very important innovation and enables people from across the African continent, those who are not able to travel, enables them to still participate in the trade fair.
Years ago, when the AFCFTA was conceptualized, you were quoted talking about the challenges with infrastructure and how various African nations had to get that solidified in order to advance trade. So how are you seeing things on the infrastructure front?
We've seen improvements. As you may be aware, African Development Bank estimates that the infrastructure deficit in Africa is between $120 and $150 billion annually. That is a very significant amount of money in terms of the deficit in the infrastructure. However, we have seen improvements. We have seen over the last 5 years, African Development Bank investing $45 billion in infrastructure. We have seen also other regional development finance institutions, the ECOWAS Development Bank, Trade and Development Bank of Africa, Africa Finance Corporation, Afrexim Bank. We've seen institutions increasing their investments in infrastructure. Our interest is to see larger volumes of investment in trade supporting infrastructure. So trade corridors, for example, ports, road networks, all of these are very, very important for supporting implementation of the AFCFTA. Otherwise, the cost of transport and logistics will continue to be so prohibitive that we will not see the benefits of the AFCFTA if we don't have the infrastructure that supports its implementation. So we have been working very hard with our partners. It's not our mandate. Infrastructure development is not our mandate, but obviously there's a linkage. And we have been working very hard with our partners to make sure that we continue to see increased investment. What is also noteworthy is that over the last 4 or 5 years, we have seen private sector investing in hard infrastructure, in border posts, in digital functionalities at border posts. We've seen private sector doing this in East Africa, in Southern Africa, and that's very encouraging. Obviously, private sector wants to see commercially priced returns on their investment, so they should. And I think that the more of that collaboration we see, the more we will turn this challenge of a deficit in infrastructure, the more we will turn it into opportunities for investment.
Final question for you, Your Excellency. What do you want the takeaway to be from the IATF at 2025 when it's concluded?
Well, we would like to see, increased volumes of trade on the platform on the day. That is the Intra-Africa Trade Fair over those 3 days or 4 days. And then we would want to see a continuation. Second, we would want to see more small, medium enterprises participating fully through the exhibitions. This is something that, in my view, it should be the hallmark of the Intra-Africa Trade Fair. It's a marketplace that provides an opportunity for SMEs to exhibit and showcase their goods that they produce. I think we should continue to increase the opportunities for young people to be part of the Intra-Africa Trade Fair. It's also, its value is also in the sense that it is an opportunity for business-to-business connectivity that otherwise people would not have. Last year we had in Cairo, we had thousands and thousands of business people. Before that, in Durban, we had 12,000 participants, 1,200 exhibitors. And the character, again, in my view, the character of a participant that we want, small, medium enterprises, young entrepreneurs, those are the people that we should be giving opportunity. Those are the people who are drivers of Africa's trade. So they should continue to have the opportunity. And I'm very confident that the Intra-Africa Trade Fair Advisory Council will continue to create those opportunities for the SMEs to be fully part of the Intra-Africa Trade Fair.